Rocky Dennis became famous because of the movie Mask, but his real life was very different from what people saw on screen. His mother, Rusty Dennis, later said that the movie left out many important truths, both beautiful and painful. She spoke about the things the cameras never captured: Rocky's experiments with drugs, the biker friends who loved him, and the girl whose parents pulled her away as soon as they saw Rocky's face. She also described prison visits, broken promises, and the very difficult life they lived behind closed doors. Rocky Dennis was born on December 4, 1961, in Glendora, California. His real name was Roy Lee Dennis. At first, he looked like any other baby. His mother, Florence Rusty Tullis, was 25 and thought her son was perfectly normal. For 2 years, Rocky grew and acted just like other children. He crawled, walked, talked, and played. There was no reason to think anything was wrong. Everything changed during a routine checkup in 1963. Rocky was supposed to have his tonsils removed, but when an X-ray technician looked at the pictures of his head, something didn't look right. He pointed out an unusual thickening in Rocky's skull. That small discovery changed the family's entire world. Rocky was sent to UCLA Medical Center for more tests. For almost a year, doctors scanned him and ran exams. Finally, in 1964, they diagnosed him with a condition called craniodiaphyseal dysplasia, sometimes called Lionitis. It was extremely rare, only a few cases had ever been recorded worldwide. Doctors told Rusty that her son's skull would grow too thick and eventually crush his brain. They said he would lose his hearing and eyesight and would not live beyond 7 years old. The doctors treated him like a lost cause, but Rusty refused to accept it. She did not want pity, and she did not want anyone treating her son like he was less capable. Rusty had lived a wild life. She had hung out with bikers, dropped out of school early, and used drugs. But her tough personality made her the kind of mother who could fight for Rocky in ways others couldn't. When doctors told her to put him in an institution, she said absolutely not. She believed he was smart and deserved a normal life. So she sent him to public school. The school didn't want him at first. They worried other children would be scared or that Rocky wasn't capable of keeping up. But Rocky quickly proved them wrong. He became one of the top students in his class. He loved reading, even though he was legally blind by age 6. Rusty refused to accept any limits placed on her son. When a doctor said Rocky would never be able to read, she handed him a book on the spot. Rocky read it out loud clearly, surprising everyone. He refused to learn Braille and instead asked for large print books. By age 7, he had already gone to more than 40 eye appointments. He endured painful medical tests every week, but he rarely cried or complained. Nurses were amazed at how strong he was. His headaches were terrible, but Rusty taught him to manage them through concentration and breathing instead of medication. Somehow, he made it work. Home life was chaotic. After Rusty divorced Rocky's father in 1971, their house became a gathering place for her biker friends. Loud music, motorcycles, and drug use were common. But the bikers cared deeply for Rocky. They treated him like family and protected him from anyone who tried to hurt him. Rocky's older half-brother, Joshua, also helped care for him. Joshua had seen everything: the disease, the chaotic partying, the police problems, and their mother's struggles with drugs. He did his best to be a steady support for his little brother. Later, Joshua moved away and became a writer, but he eventually passed away from AIDS. The movie Mask never mentioned this part of their story. In 1985, the movie made Rocky's story famous. Rusty said she had no idea they would include so much of her own life too. But even then, many parts of the truth were left out, especially the hardest parts. Rocky died on October 4, 1978, when he was 16 years old. He lived far longer than doctors ever believed he could. He read, learned, made friends, won school awards, and kept his sense of humor until the end. His condition was incredibly rare, one in hundreds of millions. Most doctors will never see a single case in their entire career. It caused his skull to thicken, his face to change shape, and his vision and hearing to fade. But Rocky never saw himself as disabled. He simply lived his life as best as he could. When Rocky started elementary school at age 6, Some parents and teachers didn't want him there because of how he looked. His head was larger than normal, and the disease pushed his facial bones in unusual ways. But Rusty refused to let anyone turn him away. Legally, they couldn't deny him an education. Rocky faced many challenges he struggled to see, and he needed special large-print books. Even though he had trouble reading the pages, he helped other students with their work. He had a remarkable memory and could remember details after hearing them only once. When asked how he managed, he would simply say he didn't believe in being blind. Not everything was easy. When he was 10, older kids attacked him on the playground and threw rocks at him while calling him hurtful names. Rocky went home bleeding and upset. That night, he asked his mother why he looked the way he did. Rusty told him something that changed the way he handled the world. If people laugh at you, laugh with them. If you act confident, people will see you that way. From then on, Rocky used humor to protect himself. He made jokes before anyone else could. Kids who once stared at him soon started laughing with him instead of at him. He even won the school science fair at age 10 with a volcano project he made completely on his own. At first, judges didn't believe he built it himself until he explained every scientific detail perfectly. He won first place and stunned everyone with his knowledge. By junior high, Rocky's condition had become much more painful. His skull was growing heavier, making his headaches worse. He could barely hear or see, but he insisted on sitting at the front of every class. He helped others with their homework and kept earning good grades. Even when someone suggested he should be moved to special education, Rusty threatened legal action to make sure he stayed in regular classes. Rocky was funny, intelligent, and brave. In history class, he once gave a presentation about the Trojan War that made the whole room laugh and applaud. Students didn't admire him because they felt sorry for him, they admired him because he was genuinely talented and confident. Whenever someone stared at him too long, he calmly said, "If I make you uncomfortable, you can move. I can't change my face." Rocky Dennis lived a short, difficult, but incredibly inspiring life. He faced a condition that could have broken him, but he chose to live with strength, humor, and kindness. His story is remembered not because of a movie, but because of the real courage he showed every day. Before graduating, Rocky was offered a position as a counselor's aide at Camp Bloomfield, a summer camp for blind children. At first, he wasn't sure he was capable of doing the job, but the camp staff believed in him. They knew he understood what the kids were going through in a way no one else could. He taught them how to move around safely without sight and how to trust their steps. At that camp, Rocky also fell in love for the first time. Her name was Diana Adams, and she was blind too. She learned his face by gently tracing her fingers across it. Rocky explained colors to her by using objects she could feel: warm, smooth stones for red, cold ones for blue. She understood him in a way no one else had. But everything changed when Diana's parents met Rocky. The moment they saw his face, they were shocked and immediately pulled her away from him. They ended all contact. It broke Rocky's heart, but he never said anything bad about them. He just tried to move forward, even though it hurt deeply. People at school rarely knew how much pain he was in. Every time he spoke, his head throbbed. Life at home wasn't calm either. His mother Rusty's house was filled with loud parties, bikers, and drugs. There were motorcycles in the yard, and drugs like LSD, weed, and cocaine were often lying around. Rusty admitted that drugs were part of her lifestyle. Rocky tried a few of those things once, just to see why people used them. After that he told his mother, "I don't know why people do that stuff. I'm already higher than most people." Doctors made it clear that drugs had nothing to do with his condition. His disease was an extremely rare genetic disorder, passed down from both parents without anyone realizing it. At Sandberg Junior High, students noticed Rocky not because of how he looked, but because of how confident he was. He made jokes, helped kids with math and history for $3 an hour, and somehow made learning feel easy. Teachers respected him. He earned awards and real friendships. At camp, kids voted him friendliest camper, best buddy, and most good-natured, not because they pitied him, but because they honestly liked being around him. Rusty once said that his sense of humor was strong enough to pull anyone in. But home was a different world. Rusty was involved with the Turks' motorcycle gang, and their house often felt more like a biker clubhouse than a home. Most kids got picked up after school in family cars. Rocky got picked up on three-wheel choppers. Neighbors called their place Tobacco Road because of the constant noise and chaos. Loud music, drugs, and bikers came and went constantly. Rocky lived between two opposite worlds: school, where he was respected, and home, where things were wild and unpredictable. His older half-brother left home at 17 because he couldn't deal with the chaos anymore. Rusty didn't deny any of it. She insisted that the partying and drugs were just part of her lifestyle. But Rocky knew better. He experimented a little, but eventually decided he didn't want any part of it. Rocky also had friendships that meant a lot to him. One close friend was a boy named Ben. They collected baseball cards together and dreamed about biking across Europe someday. Even though Rocky couldn't play baseball, he knew every player's stats by heart. But when Ben got a job offer in Michigan that paid $7.50 an hour, he took it and moved away. Rocky felt abandoned. It hurt him deeply because it felt like a dream they shared had been thrown away. He didn't hide his disappointment. He told Ben exactly how he felt left behind. In school, Rocky didn't let people walk over him. If someone made fun of his face, he'd usually make a joke about himself before they could. That was something Rusty taught him: take control of the moment before someone uses it against you. But high school was harder. He didn't have his old junior high friends with him, and he had to face new people who stared or whispered. One day someone crossed a line, mocking him in a cruel way. Rocky snapped and slammed the boy into a locker. It wasn't how he usually handled things, but everyone has limits. After that incident, people at school started treating him differently. They invited him to parties and saw him as someone strong, someone who wouldn't let others push him around. In 1977, when Rocky got a job as a counselor's aide at Camp Bloomfield, his life changed again. That's where he met Diana. She couldn't see his face, and that allowed them to connect without fear or judgment. Rocky didn't just talk to her, he taught her how to understand colors without sight. Warm stones meant red. Frozen ones meant blue. Soft cotton meant clouds. Red felt like heat from the sun, blue felt cold and sharp. Diana loved his explanations. She loved listening to him talk about the world. They kissed during a pretend New Year's Eve party at camp under string lights. It was Rocky's first kiss, and Diana said it changed her life. It changed his too. After camp, Rocky would ride his bike 10 miles every week to visit her at the horse stables near Griffith Park. He did that even though he was legally blind and suffering from terrible headaches. They spent time grooming horses, talking about life, and dreaming about traveling across Europe. Rocky put pins on a map in his room: Rome, Paris, Vienna. He really believed he might go someday. But the day Diana's parents saw Rocky up close, everything fell apart. They immediately removed her from his life. They sent her to a boarding school. They blocked his calls. They never gave her his letters. Rocky kept trying, not knowing she wasn't getting anything he sent. Eventually, he assumed she didn't want to see him anymore. That realization broke him. He slowly withdrew from friends and became quieter. His world felt smaller. Doctors had predicted he wouldn't live past 7 years old. At 16, he had already lived far beyond expectations, but he knew his time was still limited. Losing Diana without a goodbye or explanation hurt him more than his disease ever had. He had fought his illness, the stares, and the loneliness his whole life. But this heartbreak was something he didn't know how to fight, and he didn't try to. By the mid-1970s, Rocky Dennis's skull had grown almost twice the normal size. The calcium kept increasing, changing his face more every year and slowly pushing his eyes farther apart. When he was only 6, doctors said he was legally blind. One of his eyes measured 2200 and the other 2300. Even with those numbers, Rocky still learned to read. By age 7, he had already been to eye doctors 42 times, not including the many other specialists who examined him. His mother, Rusty, taught him how to manage the pain. She showed him breathing exercises and focus techniques, anything to help ease the pressure inside his head. Whenever the headaches came, she would tell him to go to his room and try to make himself well. She believed the mind was powerful. If someone could think themselves into feeling sick, she believed they could also think themselves into feeling better. The headaches never truly went away. Over the years, they grew worse and more frequent. By September 1978, the pain became so strong that Rocky could no longer walk. He spent his last 3 weeks in a wheelchair. Doctors suggested surgery that might ease the pain and maybe even give him a little more time. But Rocky refused. He asked his mother one simple question: who will I see in the mirror if they change my face? He wanted to stay himself, even if it meant living with pain. He had been treated at UCLA since he was 2 years old, and the surgery was a serious option. But Rocky remembered something his mother had told him when he was young. They were once in a hotel lobby in Las Vegas when he laughed at a little person. Rusty knelt beside him and said, "Anyone can look like someone else, but no one can look like you. Be proud of that." That message stayed with him forever. It helped shape how he saw himself. It helped him choose to remain exactly who he was. Life at home was never peaceful. Rusty struggled with drugs and got into trouble more than once. On the day Rocky died, October 4, 1978, she wasn't at home. She was at her lawyer's office trying to deal with another drug charge. Her boyfriend Bernie called her with the news. After Rocky's passing, her legal problems continued. She served time in prison in 1996, again in 2002, and again in 2005. She lived in a world surrounded by biker gangs, drugs, and constant court hearings. One screenwriter once said Rusty was not a typical mother, but she was the right mother for Rocky. Despite the chaos around him, she never let him feel sorry for himself. Rocky's pain came from more than his condition. The headaches were overwhelming. His skull kept pressing against his brain, and he often had to retreat into his room just to breathe through it. On the night before he died, he did what he always did. He woke at midnight, told his mother the pain had returned, and she comforted him before sending him back to try and calm it. 3 weeks earlier, the pain had become so bad that he could no longer walk. He had to stop tutoring other students, something he loved doing. Teaching made him feel useful and smart. Losing that part of his routine took away a piece of his joy. Even with the bikers around who had always protected and cared for him, Rocky began to withdraw from everything. The Turks, the biker group, were rough but loyal. They brought him rides, meals, and support whenever he needed it. But their world was loud, chaotic, full of partying, drinking, drugs, and fights. That atmosphere surrounded him every day of his life. On his last night, the bikers threw him a party just to see him smile. But things had been changing inside him. He had just started high school weeks earlier after finishing junior high with honors. His teachers had tried to place him in special education, but he proved again and again that he was capable. Still, high school was not easy. One day, a student teased him too much, and Rocky reacted. He pushed the boy into a locker. It wasn't like him to get angry, but everyone can only take so much. After that moment, some kids respected him more. But the pain inside him, both physical and emotional, kept building. The biggest heartbreak came when his dream of traveling to Europe fell apart. For more than a year, he had planned the trip with his best friend Ben. He had maps on his wall filled with pins marking every place he wanted to see: Paris, Rome, London. Then one day, Ben came over and said he was moving to Michigan to work full-time for $7.50 an hour. Rocky didn't understand. "I don't want the money," he said. "I want to go to Europe." Ben responded in frustration, "That's all you ever talked about." That one sentence shattered Rocky. He yelled at Ben, slammed the door, and after Ben left, he slowly pulled each pin out of the map on his wall. The dream he held onto for so long vanished in a single moment. After that, Rocky changed. He stayed in his room more. He talked less. He ate very little. The boy who once made everyone laugh became quiet. He stopped going to the biker gatherings. He didn't want to be around the drinking, the noise, or the drugs anymore. His body was getting weaker, but so was his hope. The empty map on the wall became a reminder of everything he wanted but could never reach. On the night of October 3, 1978, there was one last gathering at the house. Rusty and the bikers tried to lift his spirits. Later that night, Rocky woke up again with a painful headache. Rusty comforted him as she always did. Before he returned to his room, he made her promise something important. He told her he did not want to be kept alive on machines. He wanted to stay at home, no matter what. She promised him she would honor his wish. He then said the last words she would ever hear from him: "I want to die at home." The next morning, while Rusty was at her lawyer's office, Bernie called her. Rocky had died peacefully in his bed. He was only 16. He went to sleep with a headache and simply never woke up. Rocky had made another decision long before his death. He told his mother that when he passed, he wanted his body donated to science so doctors could learn from his rare condition, craniodiaphyseal dysplasia. He didn't want a burial or a grave. He wanted to help others instead. Ukla honored his wish. 4 years, medical students studied his skull to better understand his disorder. There was no funeral and no headstone, just a quiet cremation after the medical studies were completed. Before she passed away in 2006, Rusty spoke openly in a few interviews. She said the movie Mask only showed part of the story. She admitted Rocky had tried drugs as a teenager. She admitted her home had been chaotic and filled with mistakes. She said she wasn't the perfect mother, and she also said she never forgave herself for not being home when Rocky died. That guilt stayed with her for the rest of her life. But even with all the pain, Rocky's story mattered deeply. His life helped doctors learn more about an incredibly rare condition. His courage helped change how schools treated children with disabilities. The movie made money, but what truly lasted were the lessons from his life. In the journals he left behind, Rocky wrote about his fears, his hopes, and the pain he tried so hard to hide. Through it all, he stayed true to himself. He stayed strong, gentle, funny, and brave. And that is what people remember most.